Welcome to the deep dive. So we got this interesting piece you sent over, an add-on from David DeAngelo's Double Your Dating.
Hmm.
And it really digs into uh, the dynamics between men and women in relationships. Specifically, this whole idea around, well, perceived power. Who feels like they're holding the cards?
Exactly. It's less about literal control, more about that feeling of value,
Yeah.
the confidence each person brings or doesn't bring to an interaction.
Right.
So our mission today, this deep dive, is really to unpack the key ideas from this source, especially this power concept, so listeners can get a better handle on these often unspoken dynamics.
And it's interesting, he mentions Jerry Spence's book, How to Argue and Win Every Time, as sort of an early influence on this whole power idea.
Yeah, how we can easily give away our personal power and maybe how to reclaim it.
Okay, so the plan is to walk through 4 different scenarios DeAngelo lays out, all based on who seems to hold this perceived power. Let's start with the first one, where neither person feels they have any power.
Okay, yeah. Scenario 1. You have no power, she has no power.
Hmm.
The source paints this as, well, pretty grim, honestly. Almost like learned helplessness on both sides.
Yeah.
The example line is something like, you probably won't like me, and there's nothing that either of us can do about it.
Wow, that's bleak.
It is. The key thing for listeners here is just recognizing when maybe an interaction is starting from that kind of low point, low self-esteem all around.
Yeah, it feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? If both people walk in thinking, I'm not desirable or this won't work, well, it probably won't.
Exactly. The underlying belief is that neither person feels they can actually influence the outcome or how the other person feels about them. It's very passive.
No agency.
Right. A mutual feeling of helplessness,
Yeah.
often rooted in deeper feelings of unworthiness,
Hmm.
according to the source. Spotting that pattern is kind of the first step.
Okay, so let's flip to what the source says is maybe the most common situation. You have no power, she has the power. This probably resonates with quite a few people listening.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably so. The source gives this internal monologue example that really captures it. It's like,
Let me guess. Something about trying really hard.
pretty much,
Yeah?
I don't know what to do. I really like this girl, but I don't think she likes me. I want her to like me really bad. I think about it all the time. I had to figure out how to get her attention and impress her.
Oof. Yeah, that feeling of being totally at her mercy.
Right. And the key insight there for listeners is understanding how that one-sided focus, always trying to gain approval, actually reduces your perceived power.
It's all about trying to earn her interest, isn't it? Like every single thing you say or do is filtered through, will this make her like me?
Exactly.
Which puts you in this constant chasing mode
Yeah.
and probably creates a ton of anxiety because your self-worth gets tangled up in her reactions.
Absolutely. The focus is all external. It's on pleasing her, not on your own, like inherent value. And that imbalance just sets the whole tone, makes you feel off kilter.
Okay, so what about the healthier side? The source mentions you have power, she has power. That's called the healthiest mindset. Sounds ideal.
It does sound ideal, yeah. But the source is also realistic, saying it's not always easy to consistently achieve, because of our own stuff.
Our issues, neurosis, and inner children needing a hug, as the source puts it.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the internal thought process here is really different. It's like, I like myself. I think I'm a great choice for her. And yeah, I think she's desirable too. So I'm going to give her the chance to be with me.
Okay.
If she takes it, great. If not, that's okay, because I know I can find someone else.
There's a confidence there, but also respect.
Definitely. It's mutual respect, self-assurance. Both people bring value. Both have choice. That's the foundation for something healthy.
But it's rare, apparently.
Well, harder to maintain consistently, perhaps, because of, life or
Yeah.
baggage.
Right. Okay, so we've done no power, power skewed one way, power balanced. What's the last one? You have power, she has no power. The source's description here sounds pretty intense.
It is intense. The quote used to characterize it is, I am the best thing that ever happened to you. I take what I want and you'll enjoy it. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
Whoa, okay. That's a lot.
It's very assertive. Some might say dominant. Yeah.
And then there's that wild example about Motley Crue acting like complete animals, but being successful with women, though obviously with terrible consequences.
Right. Jail, rehab, all that.
Yeah.
It's definitely a controversial example.
But the source does say some useful lessons can be learned from them, even while stressing they're not role models. What could possibly be useful there?
Well, I think the takeaway isn't the behavior itself, which is clearly destructive. It's more about the projection of absolute self-belief. They weren't seeking approval at all. That unwavering, maybe even misplaced, confidence could be perceived as a form of power, contrasted with that needy, you have no power dynamic. But, and this is crucial,
Yeah.
the source strongly warns against acting like them. It's more like a cautionary illustration of how extreme self-assurance, even without a moral compass, can impact perception, not an endorsement.
Got it. It's definitely not advocating that behavior, just highlighting how projecting power, even negatively, changes things. Okay, so let's bring it back to the core argument the source makes, that most problems men face with women boil down to this belief that they have no power. That's a big statement.
It's central, yeah. The idea is that many guys subconsciously act like the woman holds all the power, even if objectively she doesn't, and that belief just shapes everything they do.
And the author apparently had this turning point, deciding to consciously act like I was the one with more power in every situation.
Exactly. A deliberate internal shift. Changing the assumption about your own value and then letting that project outwards.
And there's that great example about getting a phone number.
Yeah, it really illustrates this shift.
The old way was what? Giving his number out and just hoping?
Right. Very passive, waiting for her to maybe call. Lower power.
Compared to the new way, saying he's going back to his friends and then just asking for her details. Email, name, number, direct.
It's the directness. Yeah, and the underlying assumption that she'll give it.
Right.
He's not asking permission. He's stating his intent, guiding the interaction.
And handling the resistance. Like if she says, oh, I don't give my number out.
He doesn't back down easily. The source suggests just insisting, maybe with humor, like, just write it down, I'll only call you 10 times a day.
Huh. Right. It's using humor, but still holding frame, not being thrown off. It shows he believes he's worth contacting.
Precisely. It's a practical application of shifting that internal sense of power. It changes the approach.
Okay, and then there's the other example, dealing with emotional upset.
Ah, yes. Instead of getting flustered or feeling responsible when a woman gets upset.
Which is a common reaction, feeling like you have to fix it.
Right, the shift is towards responding differently. Maybe with a bit of sarcastic humor like, how do you really feel about it? Or something playful like, you're so cute when you're mad.
The key is his reaction isn't mirroring hers or getting pulled into the drama.
Exactly. He's maintaining his own emotional state, his own equilibrium, not letting her emotions dictate his sense of power in that moment. It injects some lightness, maybe.
Interesting. Okay, now this next one. The Bratty Little Sister Frame. That sounds intriguing. What's that about?
It's an analogy, right? A way to think about a specific communication dynamic. The source describes it as this mix.
Like affection, but also teasing.
Yeah, exactly. Like how you might feel about a younger sibling. You'd protect them fiercely. You know, I love you and would kill anyone who messed with you. But also, I tolerate you, but I'm definitely going to make fun of you and tease you because it entertains me.
Yeah.
So the frame is about communicating both high value, I care, but also a sort of playful indifference to needing her approval. I'm not trying to impress you.
That balance sounds tricky. How do you tease without being, a jerk? The source says deliver it in a completely calm, confident, indifferent way. Why that specific delivery?
Because people are really good at sniffing out insecurity or insincerity. If the teasing feels mean or like you're insecure and trying to bring her down, it'll just bomb.
Right.
That calm confidence suggests it's just your natural playful style, not an attack. It shows you're secure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that story about Rick asking women if they're bisexual right after meeting them.
Yeah, that's a wild example, but it highlights the delivery.
His worked because he was totally comfortable, nonchalant.
Yeah.
Other guys try. It just seemed awkward or creepy.
Exactly. It proves the how is often more crucial than the what. Rick's ease suggested he wasn't trying to shock or impress. It was just casual curiosity, however weird.
So the Bratty Little Sister Frame helps cultivate that inner comfort. Feeling at ease, not walking on eggshells.
Yeah, and helps you handle like tests or control attempts. You don't get defensive. You just brush it off playfully like, oh, stop it.
And the source also mentions honesty. Not oversharing insecurities early on, but being genuine in a cool way. Again, delivery is key.
It is. You can be honest, but timing and presentation matter. It's like casual honesty with a trusted sibling. You're real, but you don't just dump everything inappropriately. It still communicates strength.
Okay. Now, the source kind of anticipates skepticism with this idea. You can do anything right or wrong. What's the point there?
It's challenging the idea of magic words or perfect lines. The focus shifts heavily towards how you communicate, your tone, your body language. That's what gives the words meaning.
Like the, excuse me, example. Same words, Totally different meanings depending on whether it's sarcastic, polite, insecure.
Exactly. It's a huge reminder that communication is holistic. It's the
Right.
whole vibe, not just the script.
So the advice is to think critically about any technique, like
Yeah.
how could this work and how could it fail?
Precisely. Understand the principle behind it, usually confidence, assuming value rather than just mimicking lines. The author even mentions trying weird things that work just because of the sheer confidence behind them.
Right, every idea has a context, which leads us nicely into the nonverbal stuff. Nonverbal behavior is most of the game,
Yeah, this is huge. Body language speaks volumes, often louder than words.
and it's hard to teach with words, as the source notes.
Very true. But it does give some concrete things to think about. Watching James Bond for that cool demeanor.
Eliminating nervous tics, moving slower, more deliberately, even blinking slower.
Apparently, improving posture that pretend you're Superman advice.
Classic. And watching movies like Gone with the Wind, Streetcar, Top Gun for different examples of physicality.
These are all good for awareness. But the number one suggestion, the most effective according to the source,
What's up?
making friends with guys who are naturally good with women and just watching them, observing how they carry themselves, how they interact.
Learning by observation.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Like osmosis.
Kinda, yeah. Real-world examples are powerful. And the source stresses that women tend to be way more sensitive to subtle body language cues than men typically are.
So your words might be great, but if your body language is saying, I'm nervous or I don't believe this.
It tanks the whole thing. Your nonverbals have to match your verbals. Congruence is key. Otherwise, even great lines fall flat.
Okay, last big concept. Always communicate that you're selecting her. Explain that one.
It's about flipping the script. Instead of acting like you're trying to win her approval, you subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, convey that you are the one doing the choosing.
How does that increase attraction?
Because it implies you have high value, you have options, you're not desperate for her validation. It reverses that common dynamic of the man seeking approval.
Got it. And the examples were like, you seem different from the other shallow women here.
Or mentioning an ex called, but you chose to be with her tonight. Even playful stuff like, if you're a good girl, I'll give you some more. It all implies you're the prize, the one in control.
Okay, so the underlying message is, I'm desirable, I know it, and I'm choosing to give you my attention.
Exactly. It counters behavior that screams insecurity or fear of her leaving. It ties right back in to not giving away your power.
But again, a warning about overdoing it. Don't want to seem arrogant or like you're trying too hard to prove something.
Right. Subtlety is often better. Genuine confidence doesn't usually need to shout. And that leads to the final powerful line on this.
Which is,
If you believe it, she'll believe it.
it really comes back to your own internal state, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, yes. That genuine self-belief radiates outwards through your behavior, your nonverbals, everything.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on the Double Your Dating add-on, the big takeaway seems to be about really understanding and cultivating your own sense of internal perceived power in these dynamics.
Yeah, it's less about specific tactics and more about that fundamental internal shift, moving away from needing external validation.
Right, embracing your own value and agency. So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about all of these power dynamics, what's maybe one small shift you could try in your own interactions? Something that might actually change how you perceive things and how things play out. Definitely something worth mulling over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.